Coming up, the Wild win in a shootout and the Devils drop 7 goals on the Blue Jackets. This is Locked On Game to Game NHL.
Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
You are listening to Locked On Game to Game NHL, local experts on all the biggest stories on the ice. I'm your host, Jourdan Black, and thank you for making Locked On Game to Game your first listen every weekday. Subscribe to Locked On NHL and your team's Locked On podcast on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. We've got our Locked On NHL host here to tell you everything you need to know from last night in hockey. The Minnesota Wild won in Chicago in a shootout against the Blackhawks. Our Locked On Wild host goes over the exciting finish for Minnesota.
What's it like being an opposing goalie when Kirill Kaprizov has an opportunity in the shootout? I would imagine Alex Stalock didn't have too much fun with that one. Hey everybody, Seth Topal, host of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, recapping a 4-3 shootout win for the Minnesota Wild over the Chicago Blackhawks. A back-and-forth game. The Wild were shorthanded to start, with Marcus Foligno missing the game due to an upper body injury. The team also losing Ryan Hartman during the game due to an upper body injury as well. So shorthanded before the game started, shorthanded during the game, but you lean on your stars. And Matt Boldy with a couple of goals in this one. Mason Shaw with his first career NHL goal. And the Wild get goals from Kirill Kaprizov and Freddie Gaudreau in the shootout to beat Chicago to finish the 5-game road trip 3-1-1. And feeling, I think, pretty good, although we got to wait and see what happens with the injuries, because that could be difficult for this team to overcome, depending on how long those guys are out. For more on the win and more on the Minnesota Wild, make sure you're following Locked On Wild wherever you listen to your podcasts.
No goals in the first period, followed by 2 goals apiece in the second, kept things even between the Rangers and Coyotes. Going into the third, our Locked On Rangers host tells you how things finished in Arizona.
The New York Rangers survive a trip to the desert behind a clutch performance from Igor Shesterkin and a clutch moment for the New York Ranger power play, which now seems to be back on track. What is going on, everybody? This is John Check with Locked On New York Rangers. And as I just mentioned, the Rangers go on the road, play the Arizona Coyotes in the desert, come away with a 3-2 come from behind victory. A big game for Igor Shesterkin. Wasn't under heavy fire all night, stopped 18 of 20 shots, but he was there when the Rangers needed him, made some really clutch saves in some really big spots, bailed out a couple of his teammates in a couple different instances in this game, and we're definitely going to break that down in the next episode of Locked On New York Rangers. And the Ranger power play, which up until this weekend, the back-to-back against the Stars and the Coyotes, they had been scuffling a little bit. 1 for 15 coming into the weekend. They look like they are firmly back on track, and that proved to be the difference in this game. Mika Zibanejad coming up big, Panarin to Kreider to Mika. So the Stars were out on the game-winning goal on the power play for the New York Rangers, and that was obviously key for this win as well. We're going to break it all down on the next episode of Locked On New York Rangers. Do not miss it.
Coming up, no scoring until the third period between the Jets and Golden Knights. This is Locked On Game to Game NHL. We all know how important it is to keep our homes safe, and that's where SimpliSafe comes in with 24/7 professional monitoring. SimpliSafe's agent call you the moment a threat is detected and dispatch police or first responders in an emergency, even if you're not home or can't be reached. SimpliSafe blankets your home in protection with advanced sensors for every room, window, or door. They've got HD cameras for inside and outside your home, smarter ways to instantly detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. So you can customize your perfect home system in just a few minutes at simplisafe.com/lockedonnhl. You can save 20% on your SimpliSafe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month free. Visit simplisafe.com/lockedonnhl to learn more. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. Welcome back to Locked On Game to Game NHL. I'm your host, Jourdan Black. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. No scoring until the third period between the Jets and Golden Knights last night when Winnipeg put one in the back of the net. Locked On Golden Knights takes us through what turned into an overtime win for Vegas.
The Golden Knights defeat the Winnipeg Jets 2-1 in overtime at the Fortress. Chris Golick here, Locked On Vegas Golden Knights, everybody. What a game. What can we say about this one? VGK trailed early in the third. Mark Stone taps home his rebound right out of midair to tie the game up. And then who else but Jack Eichel scoring quite possibly his best goal as a Vegas Golden Knight in overtime, circling behind the net, doing his dance, going all the way back to the blue line, coming in with a nice backhand, forehand move right past Connor Hellebuck. Had an amazing evening. Oh my goodness, Connor Hellebuck was outstanding, but VGK found a way to crack him on the 48th shot of the game. Folks, follow Locked On Vegas Golden Knights anywhere you can find your podcasts. Your team every day.
The New Jersey Devils poured on 7 goals at home against the Blue Jackets last night. Locked On Devils tells us what got into the New Jersey offense, and Locked On Blue Jackets recaps the disaster on the other bench.
What's up? This is Trey Matthews of Locked On Devils, and here is my post-game reaction. So, the New Jersey Devils put the hammer down on the Columbus Blue Jackets by a score of 7-1. There was a personal motive going into this game because obviously Johnny Gaudreau, one of the few teams that he was considered signing with over the course of the offseason, was the New Jersey Devils. Ultimately, he decided to go to the Columbus Blue Jackets. So I'm sure the fans and the players definitely had this game circled on their calendar. And the New Jersey Devils lived up to the hype. They did not disappoint. They dominated from start to finish, led by their captain, Nico Hischier, who was able to get an early assist in period number 1. Then he was able to get a goal himself. And overall, Nico Hischier was making the smart moves. So 7 different players scored for the New Jersey Devils, but 13 players were able to register a point. It's also worth mentioning that the New Jersey Devils had 53 shots on goal compared to the Columbus Blue Jackets' 21. And there's actually a fun fact of the shots on goal category for the New Jersey Devils. So they have not allowed no more than 25 shots in any of their games so far this season. So you know their defense has certainly tightened up. John Marino was able to get a goal. Ryan Graves was able to get a goal. Dougie Hamilton looks like a good facilitator out there. There's just so much I could talk about, but unfortunately I can't jam it into a 1-minute frame. Good win, though.
That's all for today on Locked On Game to Game NHL. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. Subscribe to Locked On NHL and your team's Locked On podcast for more hockey every day of the week. I'm Jourdan Black, and this has been Locked On Game to Game.